Hello, true believers. Welcome to my channel, Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave, and today we have 5 more undervalued comic books for us to take a look at. So I got a little special guest here. This is my buddy Jammer. He comes into our videos once in a while. He decided to make a visit today. Want to get down, buddy? No, he wants to stay for a bit more. All right, so lots going on. Things coming up. Of course, we've had What If, right? Has been released now. A couple of episodes of that have been released since the last video we had. Really enjoying it. One of the things I've noticed about What If is that it's showing me again that it's kind of bucking what's kind of been a bit of a market that stagnated no matter what was going on, and that's like how animation drives these comic book speculation stuff. We saw a good rise with Invincible, right? We're seeing really good rises with Into the Spider-Verse. A couple other properties that have seen some stuff, but What If is another one of those animated shows that is now push things to push comic book speculation, right? Clone Wars, there's a good one. I'm not sure how much is going on with the Bad Batch, but yeah. So generally, before, animation really didn't push comic book appearances very much, but these new animated shows are so much more than just like a kid's cartoon, right? It's not just a Saturday morning release anymore. These are big budget. They have big stars following them. Marvel saying, these are canon things now. These are canon stories. Just happened in a different verse, a multiverse, of course. And I like it. I like that animation is starting to drive spec more. So there's something that's kind of just been an undervalued segment in general for the comic books, for comic book collecting, is that animation just it's only recently really started to drive some prices, right? You look at the first appearance of Miles Morales, it is really like, that is such a sought after comic book, and that's completely based off Into the Spider-Verse, and Into the Spider-Verse 2 that's coming out soon. Well, I guess not soon, not soon enough. I love that the first one was like super great. I'm glad it won the Oscar. It totally deserved to. Hopefully number 2, they're putting a lot of effort into it. They're building new animation techniques and all kinds of stuff. So really looking forward to number 2 when it finally comes out. However, I was just making a point there that it seems like now that we should be speculating more on animation stuff, right? If Disney's going to release more Marvel animation properties and do more stuff, like What If is a big hit. MODOK did drive the first appearance of MODOK's price up quite a bit. I like the MODOK show. I thought it was pretty funny in some episodes. I'm glad they're going to do season 2 of that as well. Anyways, let's get on to our 5 undervalued comic books. We'll stop rambling so much. All right, so Moon Knight. Moon Knight is filming. There are all kinds of rumors and like set shots, and they'll be filming for a little while more before it goes into post-production, and then maybe they'll do some reshoots or whatever. There's been speculation all over the place. One of the things we know, or at least there's a pretty strong rumor about, is that, one thing we know is that, Moon Knight is based around Egyptian gods, and we've heard the rumor that Osiris will make an appearance in the Moon Knight show. And so my first spec pick today comes from 1975, and it is the Mighty Thor number 239. Go down there. Which has the first appearance of the Egyptian gods in it, right? So we have a first appearance of Horus, first appearance of Osiris, first appearance of Isis shows up here. We know that based on the Eternals and the possibility that Odin and stuff will show up in those in that property. We've seen Zeus. I mean Odin, I meant Zeus. We've seen Zeus's first appearance take quite a bit of a jump already. And, this is Osiris's first appearance, who has been a very strong rumor, supporting that Osiris will be in it. And it makes sense that the rest of the Egyptian gods would be in it as well, including Khonshu, who, of course, gave Moon Knight his powers, god of the moon, and whatnot. But, yeah, so I think that this book, sitting right now, you can find this book on eBay currently for a decent mid-grade copy of this can go for $10 to $20 is about a reasonable price. There are some people asking some ridiculous prices on there. Don't pay that. You don't need to pay that for this book. You can also find this pretty easily out there in comic sales or maybe at one of your LCSs. Hopefully you can find it for like a really nice price. I paid $10 for this one. I'd give it maybe a 4. Right, I just grabbed it for the show here for sure, but yeah, I think that this book is going to get a little more attention the closer that Moon Knight gets to being released, and it can definitely jump up off the $10 mark, $10 to $20 mark to you know realize double that price or stuff closer to the Moon Knight show. So, from 1975. It is The Mighty Thor, number 239, first appearance of the Egyptian gods. All right, great cover on that book, too. Okay, moving along to number 2. And Kang spec. We've done a lot of Kang spec, and there's a reason why we're doing a lot of Kang spec. Is like these Kang books are getting hot, fast, right? So we need to grab a few of these deep spec ones that kind of make sense to us, and you never know, they could pop off, they could just remain at the price they are now. Still some good Kang specs that and people are liking it. I like the Kang specs. I think he's a great character. And my next pick for a Kang spec, it comes from 2001, and it is Earth's Mightiest Avengers number 38. And that has the first appearance of Kang Marcus in it. And Kang Marcus isn't actually a Kang, he's Kang's son. So Kang went through time to find a warrior to be worthy enough to breed his son, who would also be a conqueror and a warrior. He killed a whole bunch of them. He did this within a whole bunch of timelines, killed a whole bunch of them that he thought not worthy, but he hit on Kang Marcus. So Kang Marcus was sent into time to be trained as a warrior from some of the greatest warriors in history, a strategist, and came back as a warlord to stand by his father's side, right, and help him in the war. Will we see Kang Marcus in the MCU? Be honestly, it's a bit of an outside shot. My reasoning kind of here is that they're probably not going to want Jonathan Majors to do every single role of Kang on the screen, because it's going to become confusing for audiences. Like if there's 12 of him and we're not sure who the real Kang is, I mean that might be part of the storyline, but it could become a confusing thing. So they may want to start differentiating a few Kangs by having them played by other actors. Now so I think having Kang's son, he's not really a variant of Kang, he's Kang's son. Right, so I think it's possible that they could bring him in. He would have to be a completely different actor. He does have a history in the Marvel universe where he was fighting with his father when Kang attacked Earth, and he was the Kang War was on, and everybody on Earth was uniting against Kang. Kang Marcus, who took on the mantle of the second Scarlet Centurion, and helped his father out by leading his armies into the fight, whatever. Like I said, it's a bit of an outside chance that Kang Marcus would show up in the MCU, but this book is dirt cheap right now. It's pennies, right? You're going to look to pay, less than cover price to maybe $5 for an absolute mint condition if you're, feeling generous with your money that day. Very cheap for mint condition copies of this book. Nobody's looking at this book in any way. So grab a copy for $1. I mean, it's worth the risk in my opinion. And, you can, like I said, get this book, not hard to find. You probably wouldn't have to go on eBay unless you live somewhere where you just don't have a comic shop with back issues anywhere. But yeah, next time you're at a comic sale, excuse me, next time you're at a comic sale or, at your LCS, definitely go and try and see if they've got a copy of this in their back issues. And that's from 2001, Earth's Mightiest Avengers, number 38, first appearance of Kang Marcus, the second Scarlet Centurion, Kang's son. All right, a little family action with the Kangs going. So yeah, let's do one more Kang spec, and then we've got some other issues that we can do with outside of Kang. And We've seen a lot of issues in this little run from the Avengers in the late 80s, and this one should be up on their radar. I think one of the reasons this one goes overlooked so much is Kang is not on the cover. However, we have Avengers number 291 from 1988. And this has the first cameo appearance of Kang Nebula. And I brought up Kang Nebula before with her first full appearance, but generally she's listed as this being her first appearance, and we all know with the internet, what the internet says is generally the one that pops first, right? If yeah, people don't, read the comic. They speculate on it fast when there's some sort of a news that hits, and they run out and they're like, okay, her first appearance is 291, so this will be the one that would spike first over her first full appearance. Get both of them. I would recommend getting both of them. She just appears at the end of this one, and again, we have seen different variants of Kang, of Loki, one including a female. So there's a very high chance that we could see a female variant of Kang, Jonathan Majors' character. Also, this Kang Nebula is actually Renslayer, right? Who we did see in the Loki streaming show. And at the end, Miss Minutes gives her one of those books that Kang had that contained all the knowledge of what was going to happen, all the next, all the stuff that was going to happen in time. And now at a point he said, I don't know what's going to happen anymore. So it's my theory that he gave what's going to happen next book to Miss Minutes to give to Renslayer. In this comic, in this iteration of her, she goes through time and she kills the Kang in one of the timelines and takes his place, and then becomes, takes over as the Kang of that timeline. And it could be a story where she knows what's going to happen, and she knows if she goes to this timeline, she can take over and become Kang Nebula. And Kang Nebula, just about defeated the Council of Kangs, just about defeated the Avengers, just about, took over the whole timeline, just about trapped Captain America in a time bubble forever. She has a big history with the Avengers as well. She winds up becoming Terminex, right? So we've seen they've already pulled from that Terminex book, which we speculated on long before Loki started. But there was a Goliath in there, and Kang Nebula is actually Terminex. Is her next sort of step in the timeline as this. So she has a lot to do with time travel, with the Avengers. We know that they've already borrowed from her storyline. We've seen Renslayer. We've seen her take off in time. We know she has a book that tells her what's going to happen that Kang gave her, or got Miss Minutes to give her. All kinds of reasons for me to be really speculative and bullish on Kang Nebula, right? Having a female Kang, and again, just like I was saying with the Scarlet Centurion, it would be good to have a few other actors play these parts to help the audience differentiate between the characters. If they're all played by Jonathan Majors, it may become kind of confusing as to who's doing what at what time in this whole timeline. I'm not saying he won't play multiple parts. He most likely will. I'm just saying it would be good to just throw a few variants away from them, right? That's why they didn't have Tom Hiddleston play both, all the Loki parts all the time, right? He played a bunch that made little cameos, but even when he went to the end of time, it was played by different actors and different variants. So just to help people differentiate stuff and not be too confusing. Anyways, I really like this spec. Let me know in the comments if you guys like this spec or you think I'm totally out to lunch on it. And it is from 1988, and it is the Avengers number 291. First appearance of Kang Nebula in cameo, but definitely grab the cameo because I think that's the one that'll pop first. Grab them both. I think it's smart to grab them both. All right, let's get away from the Kang spec. Let's do Blade's back, right? Yeah, we know Blade's coming. I'm really excited for Blade. Really great character that Blade is. He's really dynamic. He's got a really cool backstory. He's, badass. Even Wesley Snipes, made him look good. And, really excited for what they're going to do in the future. But that really sets up vampires. I mean, they did a little vampire setup, just mentioning vampires in Loki, right? So obviously it's coming, right? They don't do little things like that. unless it's purposeful for a reason down the road. So let's do a vampire spec and a blade spec. And I am going to pick from 1993. It is Ghost Rider Annual #1. All right. And this has the first appearance of a character called Night Terror. Night Terror is a cool vampire. Could be one of those Marvel vampires that shows up. I'm going to be pretty speculative on a lot of Marvel vampires, as we lead up into the Blade show, right? We just try and grab a bunch of their first appearance, not just Dracula and Lilith. I'm not even really sure on whether they can even use Dracula in a film, because I'm pretty sure that like film rights for that whole kind of Dracula thing is held by Universal, and they don't really like to play ball very much with Marvel. And but still, there's going to be vampires definitely. Um, Maybe the Marvel version of Dracula will show up, right? Can't I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those ones with the vampires. I'm not 100% sure how much Disney owns the rights or can use that sort of Dracula, Bela Lugosi style with the slick back hair and the red black cape. You know what I'm saying? They may have to go with more of their later style with the ponytail and whatnot. But anyway, let's talk about Night Terror. Um, Ghost Rider, villain, also Blade villain. Everybody's speculating Ghost Rider is going to come. This is a nice little tie-in with the Ghost Rider as well. We know that they're splitting stuff up. We can see it happening now between street characters and cosmic characters. Pushing, Doctor Strange is going to come out with all these cosmic stuff, whereas Shang-Chi tends to be, it looks like they're not really touching too much on the whole multiverse aspect. I'm sure there will be some of that stuff, but it's not going to be the main focus of the Shang-Chi movie. It's not going to the multiverse, right? It's going to seems like it's going to play a much bigger role in, the next Spider-Man movie and in the next Doctor Strange movies. As well as, of course, Loki season 2. It will have to play a big part in that as well. Anyway, Night Terror, I think, he's kind of a badass guy. He's got a lot going for him as an MCU. Unique, strong. He was a mercenary, so he's like a fighter, right? Like he's already done this, and then he gets vampire, powers. Like so, he's like a soldier that gets vampire powers, very Spawn-esque kind of deal. And so he's a good fighter. He's like, especially once he's got all the vampire stuff. He's not just your regular Joe who, if you get bit by a vampire as a regular Joe, you're going to become a super being. He's a super being who's trained how to be a killer, right? Ghost Rider, of course, stops him in this issue, but he goes on for a few other issues and makes a few appearances as a vampire, and he definitely fights Blade. Definitely gets involved with the what are those guys called? I don't know, Ghost Rider and all of his little team there. They'll come to me. So this book, it is polybagged. It's one of those crazy ones. Midnight Suns, that's who I was thinking of. Thank you. Um, just like the Midnight Suns books, these guys come in a polybag and they get a trading card in there. Now, be careful. Just because it's in a polybag does not guarantee it is a mint condition copy, right? This polybag has no backing board or any real support to it, so this comic book could have been, laid down on someone's bed for a minute and somebody sat on it or sat on it when it was in the car, stepped on it when it was on the floor, all kinds of stuff that could have happened to this book. So double check as best you can if you're going to buy a copy that's still in the bag, like this one is. If you plan on CGCing these things, of course, CGC will take the bag off. They don't care about that bag because, of course, they need to see the quality of the comic book, not the quality of the bag on the comic book, right? So, this book is dumb cheap right now. Definitely can find it in dollar bins. It was $2.95 US when it first came out, and you can easily find this book for much less than that currently. Look in the dollar bins for this guy. I don't even know what even a absolutely mint crystal beautiful copy of this book, I'd maybe pay $5 for it at this point. But if Night Terror does, it does show up as one of the vampires, you can definitely, bet that this is going to come up off the dollar bins, right? It's going to, maybe hit the wall as a $20 book all of a sudden if he's in there. So from 1993, it is Ghost Rider #1 annual number one. Man, I had a lot of trouble talking that one out. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. All right, so, oh, sorry, look to pay less than cover priced. $1 to $5, max $5 on that guy. I like this spec. I've seen, other Silver Age comic books go up in price. Books that we spec'd on, around this character. Fantastic Four 35 had, Atuma's first appearance, and I like this one. And it is a Silver Age book, and it comes from 1967, and it is Tales to Astonish number 95. And this book also has to go with this book, which is The Submariner number 19 from 1969. So both of these books are kind of my fifth spec. The reason that there's two of them is that this is the first appearance of a character called Stingray, right? So Stingray makes his first appearance as, what's his name here? Walter Newell, right? He makes his first appearance as Walter Newell, which is just as a scientist guy here in Submariner number 95. And then he takes on the mantle of Stingray here in Submariner number 19. Sorry, Tales to Astonish 95, Submariner 19. I think Stingray is a great character. He's a hero, right? But because he uses technology, he does get in a lot with, he's got a long history in the Marvel Universe, right? He's still alive now, all the way from 1967. He's tied in with the Avengers quite a bit, ties in with Iron Man, ties in with all kinds of stuff. He especially ties in with Armor Wars, which we know is a property that's going to come up in the future. And one of the big things was that Stingray is a hero, but Iron Man, Tony Stark, attacked him in Armor Wars because he thought that his suit must be based on Stark technology, right? And when he stopped him and realized, no, it isn't, and he's made this big mistake and attacked a hero, thinking he had stolen technology. It was a big pivotal point in Armor Wars. It was kind of one of those big plot points where, Tony Stark was like, oh, what am I doing, right? Tony Stark drama, and that was the drama point in Armor Wars. So with Armor Wars coming up, with talking about Submariner and all the Atlantean stuff, they're going to bring in more water stuff. With his long history in Marvel Comics, I like the idea of having Stingray. I think there's an outside chance, right? But there's an outside chance for a lot of characters, and I think that even having this just as a collectible in your comic book collection is good. If you collect Submariner, you definitely want to buy it, because if he does hit, this book will take off in price. Right now, prices for the Tales to Astonish 95 are sitting, around $25 to $40 for, a really decent mid-grade copy of this book. And this book is, a little more because it has what, is considered the first appearance of Stingray, in the $40 to $60 range for a decent mid-grade copy of it. This is a nice copy that I bought a long, long time ago, so I'm sure I didn't pay even near that kind of price for it. But, I've had this in my collection for a while, so I can't really, it was undervalued back then, and I can see the value of it still continuing to rise, right? His first appearance, like I said, as just as a regular guy, Walter Newell, and then here he becomes Stingray. Definitely, I think he could wind up in Armor Wars, right? It was a big thing, and if they're trying to bring in more Submariner stuff, it would be good to bring in characters that kind of relate to him, so that when they do make that bridge into it, we can recognize a few of the characters that are going on. Anyways, so from 1967 and 1969, I'm looking at Tales to Astonish number 95 and The Submariner, Prince Namor the Submariner, number 19, which has the first appearance of Walter Neville, aka Stingray, which makes his first full appearance as Stingray here at number 19. Look to pay 25 to 40 and maybe 40 to 60 for a decent copy of that one. Still think that book has a lot of potential if Stingray shows up. Okay, so that's been our 5 undervalued this week. Hopefully you've listened to me ramble on a little bit. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It really helps me out, and it also, keeps you in the loop about all the videos that I'm dropping. And yeah, that's been our 5 for this week, guys. Happy hunting out there. Just a reminder, Wednesdays are new comic book days, but every day is old comic book day. This has been Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave. I'll see you next video.